life, I believe in the Constitution, I believe I'm a strict constructionist, I believe in the 10th Amendment, I believe in the Second Amendment, all the amendments, I believe all of it. So I'll just vote no. Well, I respect that kind of principle. But we do have a number of people in the political process who their only word is no. They do not build relationships and convince people. They simply state the facts. This is where I stand, and if you don't like it, too bad. I think what we need in the public square are people that can convince people of principle. I love people like Tom Coburn. I love people like John Kasich. People that are out winning, but convincing and not just saying, here I stand. And so, you know, the compromises come in very small ways. They begin very small. They become with when you vote for committee chairman. And they say, well, now, I understand what you said in the campaign, but you never took a pledge to vote against the committee chairman. You know, your caucus needs you to work together. And I'm not, you can do hard things and take hard votes, as I did many times, and still have the respect of your colleagues. The person that I respect the most in the legislature, by far, is Senator John Eichelberger. Because, think about who he followed, Bob Jubileer. He had to go in and really audit himself and think about things like, well, wait a second. Bottled water reimbursement. Should that be a taxpayer expense? One of the only guys that said, no, bottled water. I never thought about that. He thought about it. Whether or not she's the only senator who does not participate with the Senate Republican Campaign Committee. His litmus test is until they fire consultants that are unethical, do illegal things, and recruit candidates not on the basis of their Republican principles, but on the basis of electability and money in the bank, I'm not going to participate. Those are the hard tests of character that really reveal the strength and the mettle of a person. So that when you have a big vote, it's not even a question. But I don't just want that person voting no. I want the person to be able to stand up in a winsome, convincing way. This is the way to go. I look at people in history like a William Wilberforce. Man alive, 20-some years or so to abolish slavery. You know, but he knitted together this group of really unsavory, a motley crew of people who were wrong on 90% of other issues, but you know, they finally agreed the stench of slavery in Great Britain was just too strong and it's time to eliminate it. It's because of people like that who can deal with hard people, difficult people, people who are a mess, and convince them to vote the right way. The compromises, you've got to compromise perhaps on your personal standards of who you hang out with, not engaging in their behavior, but saying, I can be nice to that person, even though I am diametrically opposed. I can be gracious, I can be kind, but when it comes to that vote, don't even ask me. Please don't come, really. Please don't. And that comes with checks. Well, I can take that check. Well, no, I don't agree with them on that. Return the check if there's a gray area. Really. Money will not determine the outcome of the race. But when you take money that has an implied gag order, meaning you are hardcore on this issue, then I get the check. And then I'm going to vote right on it. But the lobbyist knows that $2,500 check just means I'm not going to pound the podium anymore. I'm going to focus on the economic issues, and I'm not going to focus on I'm going to focus on this issue. See, there are plenty of ways that people can nickel and dime their character. If you can, before you go into public office, or even before you begin to look at candidates you support, write the things you will not compromise on a 3x5 card. So I'm not going to go there. Once they know where the boundaries are, that's why I love the fact that Tom Corbett signed the Taxpayer Protection Pledge. Oh, what a good thing. Why? Because it's public accountability. Now, some of his folks were not as pleased with that decision, but I'm glad there was a primary that facilitated that decision. And I'm glad it's become good politics for that decision to have been made. It doesn't matter if the politician understands that pledge or not. What matters is that pledge is on YouTube, and you and I and the press know it's there, and there will not be a tax increase, I suspect, in Pennsylvania for the next 4 years. Third, keep yourself accountable. That is the hardest thing to do. That is the hardest thing. How do you check yourself against blind ambition? when the crowd is standing up and cheering for you, and you walk out and say, oh, I just nailed it. I was talking to a friend of mine last night who nailed a debate. And you could just hear the tug of war going on in his head. He won the debate because he was humble and gracious to his opponent. You can win the public debate, though, and lose the debate with yourself if you go out and think, well, that was pretty good tonight. That's good. Because that'll eventually surface and bubble up, and you will have a candidate who people go, I don't know what happened to him. You think about it. One of the first people I went to work for, Rick Santorum. I don't think anybody voted against Rick Santorum, very few people, because he was principled on partial birth abortion. I don't think people voted against him because he was principled in some of these other issues. I think people assumed at the core that he had forgotten who he was, right? It was the school in Western Pennsylvania. I love Rick Santorum as a person. But I'll tell you, it's decisions like that are played out in public where you begin to say, if somebody stands up in a town hall meeting and you're full of yourself and they ask you a tough question and you misread it and you fire back at them out of arrogance and pride, all those things go into the composite image that will eventually defeat you politically. That's the practical part of it. And it will eat your soul inside. So keep yourself accountable. John Kasich wrote this book. And I mentioned him before. It's called Every Other Monday. Simple book. His parents were killed in a tragic car wreck outside of Pittsburgh on the way to their weekly date at Burger King. Immigrants, blue-collar, working couple, salt of the earth. And I believe John was a congressman at the time. They called him, he got to the hospital, mom dies, wasn't able to say goodbye. Dad had already passed away. From that point on, he goes on this personal search for, obviously, meaning in life beyond his great achievements. And John has gone on to run for president, have a Fox TV show. But for 20 years, he put himself in an accountability group of guys, not holy rollers, as he describes it, but guys that said, look, I'm going to put my decisions up against the Bible. Even if you're secular or a non-believer, that's not a bad standard to apply to run your political test through, right? So John, for 20 years, every other week is asked tough questions about his personal life, about his private behavior, about his decisions to run or not run. I'm telling you, once you start running, the whispers in the ears of people, you could have gotten 1%. And people say, when are you going to run? When's the next time you run? You were awesome out there. You were just great. Loved your speeches. Don't you think you should run? And you say, well, okay, I could run for Auditor General of the State Senate. I could run that. By the time, then I'll be in the White House. Yeah? There's a way that you can work your path through there because somebody says, well, you could talk. So that must mean you should be running for political office. Well, if you don't have people who are stronger than you, who can say, look, buddy, I chose wrong 30 years ago when I took that promotion, and I'm on my third or fourth marriage now because of it. Politicians, I meet wonderful couples who are madly in love with each other, coming back to the first point. But I know that this is the second or third time because they made so many mistakes. I'm not going to let this one go, too, because politics is a lonely business. So if you want to survive politics, put a group of people that are not, oh, you were awesome, I love you, you were great. Not a fan base, but people that are your equal intellectually, you're equal in their principles, their understanding of how the world works. Maybe a doctor, maybe a lawyer, maybe a sanitation worker, maybe somebody who works the midnight shift at Walmart. But people of personal integrity and character, and then ask them every week that you consider even a whiff of running for office to ask you the tough questions. Because if you don't, you're going to drift by degrees. You will drift by degrees. You will make decisions like running for the next office too soon, or making a re-election decision at the point of, look at Rick Santorum. And I say, was there a reason for that loss beyond the fact that he got chastised publicly? Sure. He's got a daughter who is feet away from his bed that is on a heart monitor that gets up in the middle of the night. And I say if there's a reason for a dad to be in the room with a child, losing an election would be not a bad reason. And I look at that and I say, well, circumstances, and say, there are no accidents. And so I look at the political loss and say, Your goal in the political campaign is to protect your character. It is to enhance your reputation, to protect the people that you love. It is to be a good soldier, but not every day think that you have to blow up the world in order to save it. Because that's so many times, and I think the speaker before me alluded to that a little bit. The fact that you can go in with such gusto and bravado, have such an imbalanced life where you are consumed by petitions and ballot access and the fight out there that you lose the fight inside. And let me tell you, that will spill over and that will make you a very ineffective person. Ron Paul, intact family, supportive wife. I mean, you just go through the people who I think are normal and balanced in public life. They have accountability. Externally, family, friends, co-workers, church members, and internally, checking against a personal standard that's greater than themselves. Finally, this is where I get, and most people I think get it wrong. When I have an opportunity to give an interview, I guess PCN would probably be the best example. I'll go on occasionally on one of the call-in shows, and I'll get on, and I remember during the Corbett presentments, and I had some strong views about the motivations behind the presentments and all that. And then I would feel it coming, that I could make a point that would be cutting, would be caustic, but nobody would know except me and Tom Corbett. And I remember you make this decision at a podium. You sit here and when you're running for office, when you're going door to door, and you think, now I know that half-truth about my opponent. I did hear about what I think they said was a bankruptcy of some kind. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe it was foreclosure. Anyway, let's just say his financial house isn't in order. I mean, I've seen it 1,000 times where rooms like this become gossip sessions about the political opposition. Respect your opponent. We are the people, apparently, that care about competition. We want fair fights, competition. We want the people to decide. We want, bring it all on. We want more parties, more access. We want everybody to be involved. But when it comes time to us to get elected, and then we're faced with an opponent, boy, does it change. And boy, does it, I hear in the president, the speech, much more humble during the campaign when you're asking for the vote. And the lid has come off to the point where he's calling names in political speeches. And that's both political parties, all political parties. So the ingredient in all of this is, yes, you've got to know what you believe, you've got to know your principles, you've got to be able to answer the question on the 10th Amendment, you've got to be able to say what your position is in the right to life, you've got to be able to articulate the Castle Doctrine, all that stuff, terrific. But people don't vote for people, generally speaking, because of the checkbox. It's not an intellectual exercise. It's a gut feeling. Oh, I like that guy. And he came across real good, saw him there. Liked what he had to say. Well, repeat it. Well, no, just like him. I don't know what it is about him. It's a general impression. When people watch debates, it is, did you see him sweating? Did you see what he did? Did you see what he did? He walked over to Hillary and put his finger in her. I didn't like that. It's the impression that you walk away with. When candidates are caustic, they use words that they would not use with people they care about, and they go and they say, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to tell everybody about everything I know in this. I've got in this folder here, and these pictures that this private investigator gave. The consultant says that I'm 3 points down, and if I put that in a TV ad, it's going to move the needle. Well, sure, it may.